Welcome back to the Champion Deck Series. This is the competitive Pauper EDH little side project that I do here on the channel where we find the latest tournament winning player. In this case, it's not an internet, what do you call that? An online only tournament, which is all I've ever participated in and what that's basically all I've covered to this point too, except for Clay's RIW win, but that was only because I already know Clay and it was real easy to just link up and talk about it. Heartless, hello, welcome.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I can't complain. I could, but I choose not to.
That's the spirit.
2024, right?
Yeah, it's been something, and we're almost over it. Again, in this series, I tend to bring somebody on who's won a tournament, and then we talk about their deck. And in some cases, we've done some pretty deep dives on the decks because it's been something a little more unique. In other cases, decks we've seen, like, Malcolm Kedis twice already, and then I had Laylor twice, I think, also. So it was like, enough is enough. You can't really talk about the same list twice, especially if it's twice in a row, which I think both of those happened kind of like that. It was weird. So, yeah. I've just kind of been trying to find the way what we're doing with this. This isn't like a separate podcast. It's more of just like a thing I do to kind of help bring more eyeballs to the competitive Pauper community. And then I'm primarily a CEDH channel, so this is kind of like a way for CEDH players to see stuff that's happening in the Pauper side of things, and maybe they might get interested and be like, you know what, I could play a deck like that, and that seems cool, and like, let's go try it. And it kind of seems rude, I guess, to be like, well, your deck was something that's kind of a known quantity, and we don't want to go into a super deep dive, but pre-recording, we discussed, and we decided that we agreed that we had other things that we'd like to talk about on kind of a broader scale. So I do have a few interview-style questions that I'm going to ask you, and then we'll get to the bulk of what we really want to talk about, if that makes sense. So we're honoring the deal of what the thing is supposed to be, and then we're just going to do what we want to do, because that's how we roll. So
that's exactly how we roll.
First things first. Anytime I have a new guest on the channel that has to put their face on camera with me, I've forced them to tell me how they got into Magic, like how they discovered it, how they evolved from being whatever that was, which is usually just like, don't know what they're doing, or really casual kitchen table bullshit that doesn't, compare to what high level stuff is, or, they're 60 card only, or they're this or that, and then they evolve into yada yada. So you're A to B to C to D, or whatever, however many steps you may want to share, however in depth you want to be. But just, how did you become Heartless, so to speak?
Well, my path to my competitive Magic career all started, as stated before, for those who may not know, with my grandfather. We used to play at a pool hall in Philadelphia called Buffalo Bills. There used to be a group of guys in the back. The guys in the back, they, like I said before, they fit the stereotypical meme, the light hanging overhead, the cigarette smoke swirling around them, the bad seedy vibes that people would, stereotype them as. But they were actually playing Magic. Yeah, you're point spoken to speak, right? And I don't know what it was, but they seemed like they were locked in like some serious competition. And even at a young age, I could identify that and resonate with that. But what I was used to seeing when I saw a bunch of old men in a pool hall was either pool or chess. It was never cards. So when I kind of peeked over the edge and I saw what they were doing, I saw they were playing a game that I had saw in a magazine at the time. This is back when, magazines were still real, and it was Magic the Gathering. Of course, in a vein to protect me, my grandfather wouldn't allow me to play with them. But he said if I paid enough attention and I was a good boy, that he would eventually teach me how to play. So where I had messed up with that whole thing was that I kind of sort of taught myself how to play. And then I kind of like broadly declared to my grandfather that I was ready. I could do it. I know I could beat those guys.
Notice me, senpai.
Correct. So what my grandfather did was he put a $20 bill on the table and he told the guys that he knew, he said, I want you all to destroy him. Make sure he does not win. And I sat there and I was like, why would you say that? Like, I'm brand new and I said that I can do it, but that's kind of unfair. So we're talking game after game, these guys decimated me. They didn't give me a chance to breathe. I never had anything on the board, nothing stuck. And I just sat there and I'm just like, this is horrible. I hate how this feels. I got to do it again. And I got to do it again. And I kept doing it again. And I feel like that trial by fire is kind of how I became the person that I am today. Because the way they played me and the way my grandfather instructed for them to teach me is how I play and also teach today. That's how I got the moniker Heartless. Because after that, the tears don't matter. The only thing that matters is the W.
If you want to be a competitive player that's going to win stuff, that's...
You have to remove emotional input and bias when playing top tier Magic. It doesn't matter which format you're playing, what deck you're using, but if you are playing anything that requires interaction with another person, you have to, one, identify your own emotional processes, and you have to identify what needs to be eliminated to find the best chance of success. And a lot of people, they kind of confuse that. They kind of go off of like if we're going to use an example of spite playing, they go, well, you attacked me last turn, so it's only right that I attack you, or I think I'm an asshole if I don't roll a die and randomly attack whoever. It's not what
I used to do that too, and now I think about it, I'm like, ugh. It's so crazy.
Yeah, right?
But like, it was always casual, but still, it was like, ugh, why did I want to dive inside
There's a time and a place for that. It's okay if you guys are just, you're shooting the shit, you're at the kitchen table, you're just enjoying a drink or two, you guys want to have fun, that's fine, right? But there is a clear and decided path to victory, and if you are not doing everything within your power to take that path, then you're not trying to win.
No. And those are the kinds of people that if you do feel that way, arguably maybe you shouldn't play in a competitive format. But, curating your play groups is something I've been saying for years. So, it is what it is. If you really want to get a Wild West experience, there are Discord servers out there. You can just go do it. But you may not like the experience. I know a lot of us haven't. I started my own Discord channel kind of as a sister thing for this channel, but I also did it so I could just find people to come play with me that didn't suck, because I could weed them out.
Yeah, that's generally what it's about,
right?
I played a few junior tournaments for Standard way back when. I played Death Shadow. I did, we did Grixis things, we did Rakdos things, until I finally settled on my color just being black, LOL. And I felt like
oh my god, I almost spit.
I did the same
LOL.
thing.
LOL. Jesus.
Mono black, to me, in this game, is a color that is not only one of, if not the most versatile, but for me, one of the most exciting, because it kind of resonated with me of how I started Magic. I started Magic with, you got to sacrifice everything. You got to give up everything. If you truly want this, if this is what you believe,
you want power.
Desire, if you want power, you need to prove it. Yeah. Because his intent was to have me get my ass kicked, never want to play that game, and not spend thousands of thousands of dollars on Magic the Gathering.
Which is probably sound financial advice, but
sound financial advice. But yeah, started a little before World Week officially. I knew about the game long since before that, but World Week was my actual, I'm going to buy real cards, I'm going to make a deck. We're going to have the 60 pile and do our thing. From Standard, we moved on to Modern. My stint in Modern was kind of rocky because of the meta at the time. But very, very quickly from there, financial strain it was putting on me, I moved on to Commander. My first Commander deck was Edgar Markov, because I love vampires, and Edgar Markov requires
no introduction
to anybody.
Yeah,
it's Edgar. And from there, I had to identify not only what I enjoyed as a player, but what I didn't enjoy. And something that I didn't enjoy, and I found out very quickly from playing Commander, was conflicting mentalities at the table.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is there were players who I had assumed were here to, do the thing, win the game, show us their lines, have an actual competitive match.
And yet, they're just like, nah.
Yeah, they're like, what are you doing? Why are you being mean to my friend? And I'm like, I'm not understanding what's happening here. We're all opponents. You two are my opponent. And as my opponent, I'm showing you your due respect by attempting to kill you.
Yeah.
And the thing that I would always get on top of the training from my grandfather was, oh, you're heartless, you don't think about people's feelings. And I'm like, man, that's a really, really cool name. I'm going to use that, guys. That's kick ass. That's when it became official. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have fun. There's nothing wrong with, being a casual player. There's nothing wrong with making a theme deck or a deck for fun or even playing for fun. However, we can also, while identifying and accepting that, we can also accept that for some players, winning and being efficient is fun. It's enjoyable. It's like a game of chess.
Solving the puzzle is fun.
Solving the puzzle. That I couldn't put it better myself. And I felt like the only way I would be able to not only experience that with like-minded individuals, but also get to, propagate that amongst the people that, that I play with would be to play in competitive pods. So for a brief stint using Kirik, son of Yawgmoth, I did play CDH, and, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I loved it, but I felt like, in my opinion, no shade to anyone, I felt like there were way too many training wheels in the format. Very briefly, I will describe or define a training wheel as something that is overly, and I do mean overly tuned. It is too free, too easy, too simple, requires no thought, low-hanging fruit.
The One Ring, Wishstick Study, Mystic Remora.
Why do we still have the One Ring? I'm not even going to go into the aside. Before I digress, cards like that, you get me. And it's like, hey, listen, a win's a win. You didn't cheat. You followed all the rules. You made all the right plays. You did all the things. And the results do not lie. But it always felt as though my decks were becoming a 99 to a 98 to, well, technically your deck is technically an 80 card deck because there are 10 cards you just gotta play, right?
It's like 30. It's 30. Most decks that I build now, it's about 30 cards of creativity, and the rest of it is just staples.
And you know what? You beat me to that point too, because I was going to say, when you really get down to it, when you get down to sheer optimization, you only have about 30 cards because you need your mana base to be correct, right? You need your interaction suite and your selection to be correct. You need your draw power and card advantage to be correct. You need your
acceleration needs to be there.
Your velocity. You need all of that, and then by the time you're done, you go, "Oh, well, I gotta add this. I got our arcane signet.
Yep.
I gotta add this."
And then you play the deck, and then somebody does something, and you're like, "Okay, that's cool. I'll just tutor this up." And then you go, "Are you? Fuck! I didn't put it in the deck."
I mean, even with a few of my friends, it was like I had to get to a point where we understood. I'm not trying to be a pub stomper, or I'm not trying to get free wins off you guys, big fish, little pond.
No,
none of
never.
That.
Yeah.
It's just our play styles and the way we approach the game are so vastly different that I don't think there could ever be an accord. So I had to try something else, and CEDH was just getting very homogenized for me. I still love the format.
Which is wild, because if you consider how much even worse it was when it was still Flash meta.
Oh yeah.
It actually is way more diverse. But that is kind of alluding to what we're going to end up talking about here in a bit, because we have some similar thoughts when it comes to that.
Indeed. So I would talk to my friends about deck building. I would talk to them about what goes into the fabric of a deck, the DNA, if you will. And the opinions and answers I received were so different that you would think that we were playing a different game. Sure, your background in trading card games does affect it. Some people come from Yu-Gi-Oh! Some of them come from Pokemon. Some of them come from
Hearthstone,
whatever,
even.
Right?
Yeah.
Hearthstone, even digital card games, right? Mm-hmm. And you would think that even still there would be somewhat of a baseline. There isn't. There simply isn't. And I had to learn that. And the reason why I even bring that up is because when I help them build decks, I go, all right, well, let's start with the obvious. Do you have velocity? Do you have interaction? They go, what? Okay, I'll layman's terms. Do you have cards that draw you cards? And do you have cards that remove other people's cards? And they go, well, yeah, I got like 4, like 5. And I'm like, that won't do. And they go, what do you mean? It works for me in Commander. And I'm like, see, that's the problem, right? Not to keep on branching trees here. When you're playing a competitive format, emotion in I want to say deck personality, they kind of take a backseat. Sure, you can be creative. Sure, you can innovate. That's what I'm all about. But there is a certain point, as you and me have both said, in which your deck becomes your 30. You know, let's go with that number. And
I mean, that might be kind of a biased, thing that I'm saying, because that's just kind of my average. When I look at if I reflect on my own deck building, I feel like that's roughly about what I do that contributes to something, because that's the meat of it. That's the creative part where you're like, I took this commander and I found this combo, this combo, this combo, this thing, this interaction, found synergies here, there, wrapped this all together into one. But half of that is staples. But finding synergies with those staples, or finding likes, now that's the thing where the nuances come in, and it gets more detailed, because then you go, okay, Scryfall, show me everything that's a source of plowshares, and then you go, oh, well, actually this one that makes the manifest creature is actually kind of better for me because XYZ factor. So you play it instead. And then that's your little chef's kiss, That is your little bit of spice, and then everything else is just literally cards that everyone else would put in that deck if they were building it, for the most part, right? Like, it's a rule of averages thing where, like, yeah, it's going to be up and down for every player, but that seems to be about my sweet spot, is like 30, maybe 40 cards. And the rest is just like stuff you would play.
It's okay for that to vary, because we all have different play styles. Some of us may favor aggro, some may favor control, combo, Voltron, stacks, whatever. And saying stacks is one thing in Pauper, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah. But I think that is part of the bigger issue when it comes to not just deck building or even how we play at the table when competing. Most people do not know themselves. Most people do not know their own play style. They don't know what they want to do or how they want to achieve it. And that is part of the bigger problem. And I have noticed it a lot in my LGS. It's like, you just want to make friends. You just want to be the Timmy. You want to kill this person as fast as possible. You want to draw the most cards, have the most resources. Everyone's playing their own little mini games, right? And what happens later, which always boggles my mind, is the confusion about why they didn't win. You weren't taking every possible step as clinically as you possibly could to win. Instead, you were playing your mini game, going on a side quest. And then when that side quest wasn't fruitful, it didn't reward you anything, you go, oh, I could have won if this happened, or I could have won if. You keep putting the onus for victory on other things. And that's the issue.
Oh, I've done it too. I think everybody does.
Everybody
for
does
sure.
It.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah.
Salt is real for everybody. Everybody gets salty. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone misplays. No one's a perfect organism. But at a point, the excuses become exactly that, excuses.
Yeah.
It's like if you're pounding these tournaments, you're always going to the event, you're playing online, you're traveling from East Coast to West Coast, paying money, getting a hotel room and board, food, all of those things. That means you're committed, or I would like to assume you are. If you're traveling to play these games,
I surely
you
am
have
not.
to mean business.
No, I've played in sanctuaries. That's it.
And it's crazy because it's like people will still do all of that and go, oh, I just want to play some cards. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. You can do that, but identify what it is you want to do and what you are getting into. Because if you go to a Magic event that is labeled competitive, know that you are there to compete, as are other people. You can't get upset if someone goes, oh shit, I tapped my mana wrong. I already casted the spell. I left my hand. I'm already three triggers down. Can I revert all the way back to the beginning?
No, you can't.
Thank you. And it's crazy to me.
No, it's only the only time we've ever. I think the judge ruling is that if you tap lands and take no further actions, you can untap those lands. I also believe I know for a fact that you can play a land, take no actions, pick that land up, and play a different land in competitive settings. However, if you do what you just described, where you're like, okay, well, I play this, and then I tap these lands, and I do this thing, and then I resolve that, and I get this trigger, and resolve all of those, and then, oops, I tapped my mana wrong, oops. Like, no.
We're all cool here, right, guys? It's not that big of a deal. Come on. It's just...
Like, okay, so on my stream, I've been notorious for letting some things like that go if they weren't, like... hugely detrimental. It was just like, oh man, can I just fix my mana real quick? And we're like, it doesn't really change anything. But we're not playing in a fucking tournament. And I like to think that we're not new person friendly, but like at least palatable enough to where you can kind of understand what's going on, even if you are a newer player. I would hope. I mean, the cards go up on the screen. You can pause. You can read them. You can think about what's going on. We do usually kind of explain what's happening with our combos verbally as we're doing them. So, that's fine. In that context, yeah, roll it back a little bit. Or I might even, and sometimes I even just cut that shit out of the edit too, so that people don't even know. It just looks like that's just the way it went.
Even better, if we're training for an event, if we're playtesting, if we're doing all of that, I actually encourage you to roll it back and show us the correct line or
that's good. That's actually good too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But see, that's where this once again, this name that has plagued me so comes into play. Because when I am at a tournament, it all goes out the window.
Exactly. Yeah, it's cutthroat. It's top of the line.
Correct.
You're trying to win money.
You have to understand that this is the top of the line. This is the ultimate culmination and representation of play in this game.
Within this portion of the rule set, so to speak.
Correct.
Right.
And I treat each and every instance of that the same. It never changes. It does not vary.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, but...
You're good.
When you play casual, if you ever do play casual, like just casual EDH, when you're at the LGS, somebody whips out something, I got this new precon, I want to just play some casual. Do you still play to win ruthlessly?
Absolutely.
Me too. And people used to get mad at me because I was like, okay, look, I have this Joda deck, right? It was a Golos deck before Golos got banned. And then it was Joda, and then Golos came out. It went to Golos, and then Golos got banned. It went back to Joda, and I had to just make fine tweaks between the two. Regardless, it's free stuff tribal, so just everything is ridiculously high costed. Like the average mana, like CMC is like 4 or something stupid. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But everything makes everything free, and then it's just rampant shit to support that thought, right? And then just big beaters and other things. It's got one infinite combo, and you can technically tutor for it because I have creature tutors in the deck. But, like, generally you don't. You just get shit for free, and you get shit randomly, because there's, like, so much cascade and just all of these random, dumb effects to just snowball it out of control. And people are like, that's, like, CDH. And I'm like, bro, there's no free mana. There's no literally 0 counter spells in the entire deck. And I'm like, I'm just playing this as optimally and as efficiently as it can. Me and a buddy, like, fine-tooth combed it. And we're just like, dude, cut counterspells, because it was Golos. Cut counterspells because you don't want to even have that loss of freeness off of Golos, right? Why flip a counterspell that you can't use when you can flip something else? So we just cut all the counterspells. Fuck it. We ball. Let's go. And it works, but it is still very casual.
I have been accused of playing CDH for simply getting the fabled start of Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, turn 1 play, and it's just like,
yeah. It's crazy.
This is a precon. You watched me unbox it. The only manipulation of this precon was me sleeving it. What do you mean? Like, oh my god, it recently happened with the Volgavolt precon, the red-black one.
Oh, dude, that's my jam. I just built that in CDH recently.
And it was just like, so we're all supposed to be having fun and playing a precon battle, but, if I take a game action, I lose a life. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do about that? It's a precon.
I mean, it's literally printed on the card. What do you want me to do about it? And they sold this to be beginner friendly, right?
And that's the part that kills me. And it's like you said,
But like, wouldn't
it
they all
doesn't
be kind of
matter.
on the same power level if you were playing with the other ones from that? They're all
But see,
always pretty well balanced.
they are, but that's what there's the divide, right?
But good
I
player,
have,
good player, bad deck, bad player. Yeah, yeah. I hear you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all it is. That's all it is.
Yeah. Piloting matters for sure. Because
It does.
every time I've lost in tournament play, which I've not won a tournament, so all of the losses that I do have, I can recall like a lot of the mistakes made and have been like, it's burned in my brain to where like when I'm in another game, I think about it, like it comes up like something similar, and I'm like, oh, I remember where I fucked up there. So instead of doing that, I'm going to do this, and then hopefully better results.
But it's
right?
saying that's the divide, though. What you just said, other players just don't do. It's never, damn, I fucked up. I made the mistake. This is where I misplayed. It's always his fault. He did it. He stopped me. He didn't let me. He didn't allow me.
I mean, yeah, I've done that too, but I think I like to say I'm not old, I'm wise, but like I'm not old, I'm only middle aged, but still, it's like me now compared to me 20 years ago when I was barely 21, like a completely different animal. Like I wouldn't relate to that guy. I would not relate to that guy. I don't think. I mean, I can relate to him in some ways, don't get me wrong. Like some things never change, right? Like I still end up with the same sort of, I think, musical taste in women, those types of things. But, if I could go a little further back in time, I'd tell old me not to sell off some of my cards. I'll tell you that. But, so, I mean, I guess to put a cap on it, you went from learning how to play with your grandpa, or being pummeled to death, to being kind of like the grandpa now that pummels people to death.
That is correct. That is correct.
And
Once again,
the terror of your LGS and local scene, apparently.
I'm a bracket demon. What do we have here? Bracket demon, Elden Ring boss, and I do believe the last one was the final antagonist of the anime. And I'm like, okay, those are all cute, but like, you guys could also be these things if you would simply adjust your playstyle. But it never happens that way. It never does, unfortunately.
Yeah. So that's history out the way. I did want to pick your brain about, now that we're 30 minutes deep, we have already foreshadowed quite a bit of what we're going to end up talking about, but I want to get a couple of the interviewee questions out of the way real fast, like shorter answers.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I forget. Redcap? Is where
Redcap's Corner.
Okay. Yep. I know absolutely nothing about the venue, so shout out your place, your crew, whatever. Lay it on me.
Absolutely appreciate it. So we are Redcap's Corner, LGS in Philadelphia, PA. A lot of prolific players have entered these doors. A lot of champions have come and gone. My team is a team of 12. Naming them all will take forever and probably bore you guys at home, but just know that they are all like-minded individuals, and we all profess to the same ideology of play when it comes to this game. Notably, I will say the most active members of my team are Heartless, Sarsen Diza, Penta, and Broken Card, which you guys may know as Kevin. He's the one who just recently, not too long ago, took down a rags to riches with, I do believe it was a colorless deck, and it was a Patchwork Automaton. And
oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an interesting segue too, because what kind of happens, as me and you both have talked about initially before we even started this, a lot of people, they go, hey, I have a Malcolm Kettis deck. Once again, for everyone at home, you are allowed to like Malcolm Kettis. He is just the easiest example, okay? You go, I have a Malcolm Kettis deck. I swapped out 2 counter spells for 2 bounce spells, or I swapped out.
I don't like that draw spell, so I got this one instead.
Yeah, literally, that's
instead of opt, I'm running consider. Well, I run both personally, but
it's not a matter. Me too. It's not a matter of me saying, "Oh, your deck is, it's There is no innovation here. It's boring. I don't like it. I don't care. It's run of the mill. It's cookie color. It's none of those things. Let's use a metaphor. You go, I think I'm good at racing. And someone else says, you know what? I think I'm good at racing too. And you go, oh, cool. Well, what do you drive? Oh, I got a Honda Civic, has a dent on the left side. One of my mirrors is falling off. I think I have some hubcaps. And they go, well, yeah, got something simple, nothing popular, So just a really, really tuned muscle car with all the trimmings. And I do mean all the trimmings. And you go, well, yeah. Like, you have a really powerful car, great torque, great engine, but you don't really know how to pilot it. You don't know how to drive it. You're just...
this is Tokyo Drift, motherfucker. You brought the wrong ride.
You are literally... Ah, man, it sounds so bad to say, and I'm not trying to offend, but I'll say it this way. Everyone I've seen with a meta deck, when they are given the opportunity to use something less prolific or not as fast, not as good, not as efficient, they flounder. They don't know what to do. And I would like to believe your ability to play, your technical skill, would also shine and weasel its way into other decks. It never does.
It should translate. It's
always, it should. Thank you. It should translate. It never does.
I'm pretty sure I can play Ley Lore tomorrow and win with it. Maybe not a tournament, but like I can win some games. I can play Gretchen. I know the concept well. However, I have like done the same thing where like I watched Gator crush everybody with Abdel Blue, and then I immediately built an Abdel Blue deck, but I was like, I'm not going to use his background. I'm going to do the fucking Secret Door one, or whatever it was, the double dungeon triggers.
Dungeon Delver.
Yeah. I built it with that, and then I put in like one ETB creature that gave initiative and one that gave Enter the Dungeon, and then you just did infinite loops with them. And then won, and I was like, it's the same shit, basically. But it was actually slower and worse, but I was like, I'm creative, look, I changed 2 cards, And I never had any success with it, and I've actually basically, like, never played it since I built it. It's just not my style. And I identified that. That's not something I want to play.
That's something I would argue is at a loss in our community because it's not really discussed. Yes, you said that you built the Abdel Blue, you built Dungeon Delver Abdel, and you didn't have any success with it. Sure, that's fine. However, your results are not wholly indicative of that being the wrong idea or that being
Oh, no, of course not.
Right, and see, but that's the thing. Other people, they take results sometimes too literally. It's like, oh, well, for example, I can't even think of a bad one off the top of my head, but let's go with Yahenni, Undying Partisan, Mono Black, right? We go, oh, well, Yahenni's never won an event, so she has to be bad. Or we go, Tatiova.
I mean, if that's the case, then like what, 3,000 some odd cards or whatever the fuck number of commanders there are in this format are all bad because they've never won anything.
So what you're saying is we have an 8 commander format. I don't believe that, right?
No, there's no fucking way.
Just because Tatiova can top 4, just because she can win, just because she has been proven to win, it does not mean that she is the end-all be-all, and the inverse is also true. If someone goes, you know what, I want to build Abdel Green, what is it, a Hardy Outlander or something like that?
Yeah, the plus X, whatever.
Yeah, you go right ahead and do that. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but what you have to do is prove your work. You got to show that you actually mean this. You got to tell me that, hey, I have tested it. I've done the rounds. We play tested. I think this has legs. If you can't show me that, all the shit you're saying is just make believe. That's how I feel to anybody.
So, hashtag shameless self-promotion. I've done that with a particular list that I brewed a long time ago when the set came out, when the background set came out, the Commander Legends 2. I built Silverish Cloakwood Hermit, and it was like, it's fine. Didn't do well, nothing, and I kind of just like sat on it for a while and experimented with all kinds of other shit. And then one day I was just playing it, and randomly Gator saw me playing it, and he was like, bro, I like this list, what the fuck? And I was like, I haven't updated this deck in like a year. I don't even know what the fuck to do with it. I just think it's cool. And he was like, no, bro, like seriously, you need to put some work into this. And it like was like the devil on my shoulder. And I put a shit ton of work into it. And then we even put it on the sticker package. And then he was like, basically like, he copied my list and was constantly testing it and tuning it, had it built in paper. And he plays locally with like people in paper all the time, like you do. He has a local like scene. And he's literally told me, him and Franklin and some of the other guys from that Florida crew, they've all corroborated the stories that he literally handed him my Sivras deck, and the guy took it, had never played it before, one tournament. I was like, man, I've played it in 2 tournaments and just scrubbed the fuck out. But, again, shameless self-promotion, myself, Gator, and Kunks, a.k.a. Franklin, are both, or all 3 of us are going to be playing it in Sanctuary tomorrow. So it'll actually be probably a couple days ago by the time I release this, but you know. Yeah, so we're gonna see. They kind of made they've made a team thing, and I edit their podcast, so I'm part of the team. But also it was because Rohan couldn't make it, so I'm filling in as the third body, and it's my baby. So they were like, let's make it happen, and we're hoping between the 3 of us, it makes top 4. I just want to see it with my own eyeballs that it can get top 4. If it can do that, I'll feel like I made my goal. I made my mark on the community. My list is already on CPDH guide and whatnot. So like at that point, I'll feel like I did something. Until then, I'm still just a guy in the background that's saying some words and trying to make it happen. But then, now, next new project is Arabella, which I'm fucking super excited about. I think she's going to be...
She's real good. She got second place in my tournament. And yes, the person who got second place is a member of my team. Was Sarson Diza, got second place at the Pauper Pit 1 with Arabella.
Nice.
She is terrifying.
I've been piloting it to... Yeah, I think I've got like a 30-something% win rate currently. It's pretty good. It's pretty... And I keep tweaking it, but I think I've got it pretty well dialed in. Enough to where until a new set gets printed or some new cards get printed for it, I think it's pretty good.
That's all she needs.
Oh,
you know,
dude,
you would think because it's Boros that, oh yeah, Boros, right? You know, the typical assumption people do, oh, it's Boros, no one cares. No. It being Boros, it's why it's so good. You have access to protection, to speed, to heal, to damage, and you know what?
It's pretty crazy.
Because of your colors, you're never really the threat at the table.
That too.
Until it's too late.
Legit, like first couple of times I played her, yeah, like nobody removed her. I don't know if they just didn't have removal or they thought other things were more threatening, but she did not get removed. And worst case, she got bounced and I replayed her, and then the next turn I was swinging again, and my average is 4 to 6 damage on her first swing. By turn 3 on average. And that's 12 to 18 damage to the table by turn 3. Tell me that isn't aggro. And the thing is that it's kind of still built like a mid-range deck because it can grind. It's got some draw, it's got a lot of removal, it's got a lot of protection, and the engine is to just do that. And then it's got a pinger package, so you slam those down and you're just making more damage. You're casting spells to make tokens that the spell cast triggers your archer, and then the 2 tokens come in, and that triggers your witty roastmaster, and then you go to combat swing with Arabella, and that triggers off all of them, and it's just like you're doing 12 damage to the tail. Like it's a quick clock if you can get the right cards at the right time. Obviously, that's Christmas Land. But the synergies
it's magical Christmas Land, but you know,
and we keep getting all these reprints or all these extra prints of like thrills and draining spells and things and pingers and life loss things in black and red, and it's just the synergies are there. It's just gonna keep coming.
The tools are there. It's just you need someone to say, hey, this could work. That I think most decks, I will be realistic, most decks just are waiting for someone to have the balls to say, you know what? This could work. This could be something. But you have to be willing to take the training wheels off. That's all you have to be willing to do. I mean, getting second place with an aggro deck with the worst colors in Magic, is something that a lot of people would not give any credence to. But then same team, topped the tournament with colorless. Like at some point you gotta stop saying that, oh, it was a case of lightning striking, and say that, you know what? Maybe these are the results that I want to pay attention to.
I mean,
the format is not as solid as you think.
Well, that's it. And this again is my brand, so to speak, is interjecting the CDH crossover. And there was a couple years back, there was a tournament where Magda, which had already seen play but no results, out of nowhere 4-0'd to get to top, and then crushed and won flawlessly, won a tournament, and people were like, holy shit, Magda's a thing. Like, this is crazy, because like somebody found like the right lines and the right thing. It was the Clock of Omens. That when they figured that out, Magda was blown up. But then no results for a while. But then they printed the Phyrexian whatever 9 mana thing, and then there was like another dragon that came out that was kind of actually relevant, and a couple other things, and suddenly it was relevant again. And it won. It did. Well, some of that is that, but also it's just a matter of, like you said, is this an 8 format deck, an 8 deck format, or is this a fully unexplored format, and we should do more with it? And because honestly, we've gotten completely away from any sort of the interview thing, and that's because this is what we've been wanting to talk about anyway.
This is what we do, though.
And so like Abdel Black is what you played. You won the thing. Congratulations. Like, all due respect,
Thank you.
I'm happy for you and all of that, but we came here to talk about this brewing thing because there is a lot more to it, and we're already 45 minutes in. We've already touched on.
Everyone at home.
No, hey. I told you at the beginning this was going to be off the cuff and just hanging out. We're just having a casual conversation. I've had a couple beers, like I'm chilling. My initial thought was just kind of along the lines of, I have I feel a similar thought process to you in the way I view CEDH. Now, if you asked me prior to these recent bans, which I'm sure you're aware of what they were, everybody should be aware of what they were, but it's the J-Lo, the Mana Crypt, the Dockside, and the Nadu, which fuck Nadu, like, I didn't care about that one, but the rest of them, like, made my heart sad. Dockside, yeah, okay, fuck it. It is kind of the same thing as, like, Hull Breacher, but man, I would have never banned Hull Breacher, to be honest. It combated...
J-Lo and Mana Crypt was a choice.
That...
But whatever. We're gonna leave it alone. Fine.
It was a choice, and then it was not I wouldn't say cowardly to just like hand it off, but like you kind of just were like, you're the quarterback that got a bad snap, and then you looked over to the right and there's your running back just looking at you like, huh? And then you're like, here you go, bro, fuck you. And then you just go running off, and then he's like, fuck, and he's dropping it or whatever, and then they get the ball and they fucking run it in for 6, and you're like, well, butt fumble, I guess. I don't know, man. Anybody who's here has obviously, we're on my channel, so obviously you've watched my gameplay videos. You've probably noticed that, yes, sometimes we do go like, hey, let's play max power, and we play the hardest shit, and we go hard. And then other times we're just like, let's play some wild, weird, experimental bullshit that just has known combos. Because that's what CEDH boils down to. It's like, the commanders change, the interaction changes depending on the colors, the draw... all of the different parameters of a good deck changed based on the color pairings, but the overall theme's still the same. You build as efficiently as possible, and then you do whatever you got to do your combos and your whatever your originality is, your 30, so to speak. So we were always pushing that, and so we would have decks where it was like, okay, this is just a Dimir list with a shitty commander that does one thing, and you have this one little cute little package for it, and the rest of it is basically just a Dimir list. But that would still be considered like subpar. It's not tier 1. This is not tournament ready because the commander sucks and XYZ, and you're using the subpar package for your cute thing, and like, no, that's not allowed. Gatekeepers and blah blah blah, and then you get to where you have this solid format and poo poo. And the same thing has happened, and is lessening in Pauper, from my understanding. I wasn't there for the early days, but I understand that there was some of that sort of gatekeepy bullshit, and then there's pushback, and people have experimented and whatever. Right now, I feel like it is very Wild West, and with the rate that Wizards is printing new cards, particularly because commons are the most printed in every set, like, it's getting a huge influx constantly, so it's a rapidly changing format, and there's always new things that might be printed that might make something new viable. Silver's Cloakwood, when I built it, it was okay. Mirkwood Bats, Nadir's Nightblade Downshift, oh my god, we have something. Teshar, Downshift, so that's gonna be a baller-ass deck. It's just not there yet. Something's gonna get downshifted, something's gonna get printed, something's gonna get reprinted, whatever. Well, downshifted, you know what I'm saying.
I mean, I've said it earlier.
New stuff will happen.
In our podcast, Yeheni Undying Partisan, if you think she's bad, then you don't understand Magic. You really don't. I don't think you do.
So, like, I haven't gone really off the beaten path in Pauper as much, although I think when I was initially trying to push... We did an episode on Common Theory, and it was one that I ended up editing, and this was prior to me being the full-time editor, but they were like, kind of fishing, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it, and we did it, and then shit was happening, and they couldn't pay me right away, so they were like, we don't want to, like, have you do the work and not be able to pay you, and then it got to a point where they could pay me, and then they were like, okay, now we want to bring you in. Anyway, long story short, we had an episode where the overall gist of it was, like, pushing your own meta. And it doesn't mean... I guess that's also kind of what we're trying to do with the whole team thing, and having multiple people playing the same deck, bringing it to a single tournament, and then being like, we're pushing to make this get to the end, because we're trying to prove it, and this pushes through more games for more data. If that makes sense? So it's kind of like... I don't know. It is kind of annoying, I think, because there can be some of those, like, awkward mirror matches, and I hate that. I really hate mirror matches. And I guess they did this, I guess, in the last Sanctuary, or the Common Cause, or one of them. Whatever the last tournament was, I think it was Common Cause, that they played in. They all played Malcolm Breaches, which is Rohan's baby. And Franklin was the one who ended up in the top 4. Didn't win, but they did push it through, and it got to top 4. And it hadn't, I guess, yet. Or if it had... nothing that was, like, recorded somewhere, you know, maybe in local somewhere, but, like, nothing that we had data on. So, and then Silver's Cloakwood, yes, has won in, I guess, their Florida meta, but we have no data on that, so this is something that will be recorded. And if we can get there, then, you know, I can pat myself on the back, even if I'm not the one that gets it there. I'm hoping to be the one that gets it there, and, you know, obviously would love it if it was the thing that won.
Doesn't matter if you're not the one that get it there, you made it, and I don't care how anybody feels about it.
Well, I mean, I can't say that I take absolute responsibility, but I did kind of already have the idea on paper. It was just then encouraged, and it's grown, and it's changed, and it's, I think, in a good spot.
Are blueprints.
Yeah. My name would be in the credits, so to speak. That doesn't mean that I'm the only name in the credits. And I would not ever... It would be like winning an Oscar at that point. Like, if I was having to give a speech, it'd be like, well, thank you for this person for this inspiration, and this person for that. And thank you, of course, to my lovely partner, and this and that, and love my dog.
All things are derivative.
You know?
Yeah.
Everything intertwines, folks. But, yeah, speaking of intertwining, we've had kind of a interesting back and forth that is weird, because it's almost like throwing... shit to the void, and the void throwing the same shit back, which I don't hate. We have a similar thought process. So, like, as I said, I was trying to kind of, like, explore other spaces. When I brewed some of the lists that I'm sort of known for in competitive, like, they weren't exactly, like, they were new cards, but, like, they weren't exactly explored or really hyped up. I don't want to say subpar, but, like, really it's subpar when going at it from the Heartless...
Oh,
no. I was gonna say it's more like it's tier 2, or it's less than good, or if I'm gonna be Heartless, like it's just not tier 1. I can admit that my most viewed deck, that's like a thing that people know me for, is not the best deck. However, I can tell you that it'll win you some games, and that's all that matters, because CEDH shouldn't be just about, I can win every fucking tournament. You gotta be able to have fun, play a little more casually, even though it is still competitive and cutthroat. You gotta have things that can combat, and actually, her stocks have gone up a bit because of the Dockside ban, because now you don't have to worry about feeding anything. So throwing down your Stony Silences and your Collector Oofs still impact the table, but you don't have to worry about having any of those things down affecting your Dockside count. So,
quick interjection, because I've always been fascinated by that statement. If a tier 2 deck or a rogue deck or an anti-meta deck, whatever you want to say, if one of those decks wins a tournament, what then is the tier of that deck? Because you can argue, oh well, yeah, it was a tier 2 deck, but it beat tier 1 decks. It went through the rounds. It got.
People would argue that Magda's probably not an S tier deck anymore either, but like it did have its day in the sun, right? So, I think that sort of mentality, I think it is not as so like carved in stone. Like it's more of a leaderboard that is constantly, and things are going up and down. So, and in the Pauper format, there has been a pattern of these decks are winning the tournaments, and these are the ones you should be playing, which is going to end up in a tournament where it's like 50-50 Gretchen lay lore, and who the fuck wants to play in that?
But here's the thing about that, Islane. If everyone is playing the same deck, is the results that we are being shown because that deck is that good? Or is it because it's a matter of monkey see, monkey do, you win with it?
There's no diversity to make any comparisons to. Like, if you had all of that data, like, let's say there was 100 tournaments of just those two decks, 50-50 split, and they had their 50-50 split on wins and losses, and then you banned both of them, and then people went, okay, these are the next two best ones, and they did it, it'd still be the same fucking results, like, skewed slightly, but rule probability is that it's going to basically balance out at some point the more that you do that, until you start adding variables, which variables, like, change everything, right? That's just math. And I'm no math guy.
And the funny thing about that, is we go, okay, so using that logic and also saying to yourself, most players will identify by art, identify by name, and they'll go, oh, it's not one of 8 decks that win tournaments. So you know what I can do? I can do this one cool mistake. I can underestimate it. Lorehold Apprentice? Patchwork Automaton?
I mean, even
Oakwood?
Even Witherbloom and some of the other ones that have come around that have been kind of like, they probably have the potential, it's just like nobody wanted to like really put the work in. I put a lot of work into Sivrus. Like, this has been a multi-year thing, and it's been a lot of like, I've looked at it and just stared at it and been like, what else can I do? And then you write the primer, and then you change the primer because you've changed some cards, or you add a change log or whatever, and then you're like looking at it and you're like, is this the right choice? And then you play test and you're like, that sucked. Put it back. And then, oh, that sucked. Put it back. Fucking sticker package. This is going to be great. We're going to combo with Cauldron Familiar, because now we can put 2 foods on it each time it dies, so there's an infinite amount of foods to sack through the fucking do. It's awesome, and then it never fucking worked. I never once got that combo. I think I got it to work once. Out of probably like 20 games, 30 games, I don't know. It was a lot of games. I was like, nope, this is not satisfactory. Took it out, put in more interaction, put in more other things. It's to the point now where it's a pretty well-oiled machine, and each time a new set comes out, like, there's things that I consider, and then I go, As far as big updates, there hasn't been. Like, the sticker update was a big one, and then taking the stickers out was a big one, and then outside of that, it's been very, like, here, there. Although, I think I got a few in Modern Horizons and a couple sets before that as well, but whatever the case. Another thing that we sort of see eye to eye on, though, is that we don't want to play something that's already solved. We want to be something that we want to play stuff that still needs to be solved. We want to push our own meta, like push that this is good and this needs to be here. That was what we were trying to accomplish with the Sivris Cloakwood when I started really dumping a lot of effort into it. It was trying to make mid-range have ways to end the game. And because of the sheer amount of attrition in the list, it was pretty good, but it was like just too slow. In tournaments, the first 2 tournaments I played it in, which I think was like Sanctuary 2 and 3 or something like that, so we're talking like a year, but still a while, long enough to where the deck has evolved again.
Attrition is something that I have had arguments with other people about, not bad ones. We'll call them debates. And I feel like that is where the divide comes in, because let's segue for a second, right? Let's actually talk about Abdel Black, right? That's what the kids at home want to hear. The reason why?
Why? Is it because you won with it or something? I don't know. Is that why you're here? Man, the guy who hosts this show kind of sucks. Like low key, kind of sucks at introducing any of this shit. He's just like, hey, random dude from Philly, let's hang out in our house. In your store, in my house, and we're just gonna talk about Magic because we can.
Hell yeah, brother! I wish I had some whiskey because it'd make this a lot easier. Because this conversation always goes the same way. You know how it goes? It goes, oh, Abdel Black. We go into the memory bank and we go, oh, you're playing a bunch of fucking edicts. You're flickering Abdel. We get it. And then we go, no. Actually, what I'm doing is Abdel discard. And you go, well, that's stupid. How do you win with Abdel discard? And we'll take the word you said, attrition. I don't want to just straight up control the board. No one has shit on the board. No commanders, no creatures. I want to do 2 things. And I said this in Clay's interview as well. The reason why I chose Abdel Black is because black is one of the best colors, if not the best color, at depriving players of resources. So if you can't win the game, I can find more options to win the game. If you have no cards in hand and you're top decking, I don't got to worry about your counter spell or your bomb coming out. I don't got to worry about your Peregrine Drake. I don't got to worry about that. And everyone told me I was wrong about it, but I won.
What do you think about? Okay, so since we're similar minded, what do you think about Zoyoa?
That is crazy. Okay, so Zoyoa is one of those commanders in which, once again, we just got done talking about it. People will look at it and go, check the memory banks. I don't recall it ever winning. Therefore, it is garbage.
Bro, I brewed it day 1, and the parallels between it and Sivris is so close. But then it's like a different axis, but it still plays like basically the same sort of game. But it's that hand hate, and it's that attrition. Mm-hmm. It's getting rid of your hand, but it's also the sacrifice and all that. And we did have hand disruption in Sivris. We ran it for a while, but we found that it just never felt good enough. Like, we felt like we would rather just be running more direct removal or more card draw or more grave flickers. I'm on most of the grave flickers. I'm on most of the deadly disputes and all that kind of stuff too.
Those are good.
You can run all those in Zoyoa, and you can give her the equipments and the enchantments that give her the ability to ping because she has Death Touch, so you hit problematic creatures. It's a great control list, and I was telling people this list is great, and I was playing it, and people were into it. Like, it's got almost 1,000 views on Moxfield. Like, people have seen it, and like everybody that I talked to was just like, nah, that deck's garbage. Nah.
See,
I'm nobody sees the vision though. Like, they don't get it, and it pisses me off.
And I'll tell you why they don't see the vision. Again, we're not talking about any specific person. Put your fees away, people at home. I am just saying it in general. The reason why is, Lane, they don't see it is because they themselves have not done the work. They saw a winning list and they used it. That's it. Yeah. It came pre-packaged for you. They haven't spent nights up until 5 in the morning.
Literally nobody gave me insight on that list. I built it myself. And then I tweaked it myself. And anybody I showed, they were just like, nope. You could do this, you could do that. They gave me some card suggestions, and I might have taken some of those. I can't say that I don't take advice. But I will say that nobody was positive about how they thought. Like, I think Bobby from Sanctuary, I think he said he was running a list.
Shout out to Bobby Fine.
And I want to say that, like, it might have been Paul or one of the other guys from the RC that I interacted with on the home base that was really into it and was high on it, but that was it. And I played it for a hot minute, and then I was at a point where I was, like, kind of tempted, like, maybe I'd played it in a tournament, but then, like, something else came along, and I, whatever. So,
Which you would have. It's great, and it's crazy.
I still have it, and I'm still thinking about it as another project, but it's like, I'm trying to prove Civrus right now, and then it's to jump onto Arabella, and then it's to jump onto maybe that. I don't know. Or then there may be something new by that point, too.
And disruption is good. Listen, I'm not even going to try to soften the blow or sugarcoat it. If you don't believe hand disruption is good, you're wrong. Period. And if you don't understand, hot take. And if you don't understand that having limited to no options, reduces your ability to close the game
or interact.
On the inverse, having all the options, it makes it kind of obvious who's going to take the game. And that's how I built my version of the deck. And that, I say that to say decks that have hand disruption in the command zone, they should not be ignored. They should not be written off. Well,
that was my point with Zoyola too, is that, like, it's a damage outlet, but you only get the damage if they can't do either of the things. It's either discard a card or sack a creature. So we play all the idiot creatures, we play all the Grave Flickers, we do all that, we loop them, we kill your board, and then we start doing discard creatures, loop them, your hand's gone, and now you're forced at every single one of my end steps, as long as I hit that descend trigger, which is fucking easy, by the way, because you put in every single... Right, well, it's like just a bunch of shit that will mill you, or you discard, or you have... every single land I can put in and then sacrifice is a descend trigger. So, like, I'm running every single one of them.
Evolving Wilds.
Right, all of those. Every fetch land that is a common is in the deck that I can run, because that's another potential trigger. But if you can set it up like that, you're now doing 3 damage to the table every turn, and they have no creatures and they have no hands. And you're swinging with whatever you have on the field. Like, how is that not a win? The problem is that in practice... it hasn't worked out that well. Generally speaking, the drain and the attrition works, but it either you go past time in the games that I've won. It's either it was past where time would be in a tournament setting, or I was on the cusp and then a combo player won. And that's the problem I've had with Civrus Cloakwood, and that's any mid-range deck is going to have that problem, because you have a mix of control. It's proactive and reactive. Like, most true mid-range decks are more proactive, whereas control are more reactive, but they are both ends of the pie, so to speak.
I'll piggyback on that and say as well, like, it is refreshing to talk to someone like-minded about this, because you got to understand, although it does not affect me from a competitive standpoint, it is a little grating that each and every instance of conversation I have with anyone is always, well, X, Y, and Z didn't do this, therefore it doesn't work. Or X, Y, and Z didn't play this, therefore it doesn't work. And it's like, so hear me out. At what point in the meta or the conception of this format was, let's say, once again, example time, Malcolm Kettis, at what point were they untested, unproven, not good, right? And someone
back
said,
when, like, people were playing... That was back when people were playing, like, Ghost and Armix or whatever, and they were like, Malcolm Kettis, ew, that's gross. Like, this is way better. Yeah, but it was a slower game, less interactive, and people could get away with that kind of shit. Meta shift, and that is what it is, and that's why some decks are not as good as they are, and the same shit happens in CEDH. And honestly, even in EDH, there are decks that are just, like, not as good as they used to be. Like, you might have that, oh god, what was the one old Voltron commander that was 3-color, Bant, oh my god.
Rafik a mini?
Yeah, there you go.
Was it Rafik?
Yeah, Rafik.
Yeah.
So, like, that is not really a viable deck anymore. There are just way better Voltron commanders nowadays. But, somebody at some point loved that deck, crushed stables with that deck, had a great time. It was feared by a play group, and now it's retired. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is, because it is a game that has to evolve and shift. But you could also play, like, hey, guys, rule 0, let's play old fucking shitty decks and just have fun. And you can do that, too. And you can do that in any format. But here, in the competitive sphere, there tends to be, and it happens in every competitive space, you see it in Modern, and, like, That's the biggest complaint with Magic, is in every single format, is that there's just this landscape of, these are the top decks, this shit sucks, I am tired of playing against the same fucking deck over and over again. Somebody innovates something a little bit, and there's that rogue deck in like one tournament, and then it goes away, and then it's back to the same fucking shit, and then there's rotation of some sort that makes some other deck, if it's standard, there's rotation, so then decks have to change. If it's modern or other more eternal formats, it's just the meta shifts because some new card gets printed and it makes something else better. And then in the really old fucking vintage and legacy and shit, it's like, okay, Luris got printed and that busted open the format for a minute, and then they're like, nope, fuck that, ban that shit.
Oh my god.
But it's in EDH, it's been, in EDH for the most part, EDH, which is also CDH, which is also basically PDH as well, because it all follows the same fucking man list, just the rarities matter, so not really affecting some. Really, this one did feel kind of CDH targeted, unfortunately, but
Because it was.
It was, and their reasoning was the same as it was for Hull Breacher and Paradox Engine and except for Flash, because we actually asked for Flash, because that was awful. But like all the other ones, like that was all for casual, and that's fine. We understand. It is what it is. It seems, thankfully, there was a lot of, downward negative feelings when the bans were happening, but what I'm seeing now is a lot of creators have been putting out stuff, and everybody seems to be adjusting just fine. And myself and my streaming group, we've been playing our decks without the stuff, and nothing's really changed. We've just brought stuff out that like used to feed Dockside. Like I said, I was playing Sythis again. I played Elvir on stream. Okay. It is what it is. It's we adjust, we adapt. New cards are going to come out that are going to be busted. It is what it is. And we are also talking about like doing some, no ban list kind of thing, but like not so much of just like playing with whatever. But so I have a Flubs deck, and I really want to play Fast Bond. Mm-hmm. Because that just
sounds good.
That's dope. So I want to do that. And so I was like, you guys find that deck that you want that has that one card. Like you can have Leovold. I don't care. Just whatever. Just find your card and then we'll do something. But I digress. Getting back to the topic at hand. So how do you think that people can go about, because as you say, it is kind of a human behavioral thing to like just monkey see, monkey do. I don't know anything about this format. I start watching content. They're talking about these top end decks. They point me to the direction of, CPDHI guide or the PDH home base or whatever, and I see tier lists and I see this and I see that, and I'm inundated with information. But the gist of it is XYZ is the best, and the rest of this is kind of meh, and everything else is either we don't know or it's trash. And I think the general consensus, if you watch most things, is that just like everything below that is trash, even though you, I, and everybody else that's creating that content knows it's an untapped well of potential. Because there's just so much. And there's only so many people that are actually exploring or doing the work. Because everybody else just is waiting for people to do that so that they can piggyback and play and be like, oh, well, that was my list.
That's correct.
That ain't your fucking list, dude. Like, somebody else put the work in and did the thing, but... we also can't really claim ownership over them either, so it is kind of just like I maybe formulated the idea and then everybody else took it and ran with it. And that's fine, as long as you're given credit. Like, if you're playing one of these lists, don't be trying to be like, I created Malcolm Guinness. No, you fucking didn't. Like, nobody's going to believe that shit. Like, these are established lists that have been around for a long time. You're not some fucking prodigy. However, I'm not trying to say I'm a prodigy either. Like, I've built some stuff, it has a brew in itself. If it does eventually, I'm still not going to say I'm a prodigy. It was just, I put in the work and it got there. Or the right pilot got it there, because maybe I'm the fucking bad pilot for my own deck. And that's sad, but like, I could pilot that deck in my sleep, to be fair. But it is a thing where it's just like, you hyper-focus, you optimize, you do all the things, it's all in your head, and then you start playing and you just make mistakes, and then it never gets there. But it's gotten there in Florida. Accordingly, I don't have receipts, but
Working does something.
Yeah, so.
Right pilot, wrong builder. Right builder, wrong pilot. Those things are real. It happens in card games. I've built some decks that I swear to you could take down a tournament, but every time I used them, I was hot dog water. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
and the reverse is true. I've built some decks that I'm like, this is not going to do anything.
I built Arabella in a night, thinking like, this is cute. It's probably not that good, but it's cute. First time I played it with first draft with not even like anywhere near the polish it has on it now. And I'm only talking, it's only like 3 weeks old, so like I couldn't have done that much work, but I've done some work. The first couple of times with it, it was like, holy shit, there's something here. Like it was just there. You could feel it. And the whole table was like, what? Like what? And then I'm like, okay, go to swing, and I'm like, anything? And they're like, well, we don't have anything. And I'm like, okay, trigger. And they're like, 8 damage now? What? They were all down like sub 10, and I was at 50. I'm like, this has got something.
Feels good.
Like now we gotta just fucking fine tune it. So we started fine tuning it, and I've had some eyeballs look at it, and I'm actually more shameless self promotion. We've got a podcast coming out on Common Theory that'll be out Monday, which I don't know right around when this releases. Go look for it. It's about a deck tech about the list, because they had emergency shit because of the hurricanes and stuff that are going down in Florida. So one of them couldn't make it, so I kind of filled in, and they were like, "Can we just interview you about your deck?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool."
Thoughts and prayers to everybody affected by that Hurricane Irma, because it's bad.
Yeah, I hope everybody's okay, and I hope those guys are able to join tomorrow, even, because who knows?
It's bad.
Regardless, so we're at about an hour and 15. I've asked most of the questions I wanted to ask, but I still feel like I could pick your brain a little bit more. Just trying to think of the next
what do you
angle.
want to ask me?
So let me ask you this. Abdel, so you ended up playing Abdel Black, and you won with it. And maybe, because we've never really interacted before outside of a little bit of text messaging. I was unaware of your whole scene, your guys' whole crew. I was introduced to you basically through Clay's interview with you, which was a great video. Y'all should, I'll put it in the link below. You guys should go check that out, because it was another great discussion.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Hell yeah. So, like, when I was watching that, like, I got a feeling of who you were and these things, and I was like, okay, well, I want to pick this guy's brain. But then I was lazy, and I didn't write down notes where, like, I actually had questions, so we've just been kind of free balling it right now, and it's been good.
That's the way I like it.
It's been good.
Loosey-goosey with it.
Right. So, why is it that, okay, so, because we're kind of preaching here. I use preaching loosely. I don't like preaching. I'm not religious, so like preachy is bad. But
I am an atheist.
We are preaching here about the virtues of this deck building style, this thought process, this way of thinking, this way of approaching the game, this strategy, whatever you want to call it. Just being a little bit more open-minded, not trying to follow trends, trying to be a trendsetter, trying to be a leader, trying to be somebody who builds something from the ground up, yada, yada, yada. Why is it that you played a deck that was something that it had already been established? Not saying that I know who established it, because maybe you and your local meta, maybe you are the guy that established that and didn't have any outside influence. Again, we just started interacting. But
once fed, I guess we'll never know. But
the main point of the question is whether or not, like, were you net decking here or were you creating here? Because I don't want to paint a picture that, like, you're this radical and then you're like, I net decked this one, I set this one in.
No. Let me explain. Okay, so my first foray into Pauper Commander was at Rags to Riches. Shout out to Dallas of Queen and Rook.
Yep.
I was introduced to Dallas via my teammates.
We've interacted a few times.
If you didn't know, the first deck that I used to win the very first Rags to Riches tournament was Ellis Ilcor Sadistic Pilgrim.
Oh, so I knew about that deck and that it winning that. I heard talk about that. I remember people talking about the deck. I didn't realize that you were the pilot. So that connects some dots with history, though we hadn't interacted.
Indeed. So I won the first Rags to Riches with Ellis Ilcor Sadistic
I didn't start doing this interview thing until after that, unfortunately. Otherwise, we probably would have talked sooner.
It's okay. And
fate got us here either way.
One of the reasons why I use those, one, because Orzhov, Black and White. First of all, I'm a Mardu guy. I thought I described that to the people at home by mentioning Edgar Markov, but I'm Mardu.
Tim the Rog, that's my jam right there.
Okay. And I played white and black because I felt with 30 life, 16 commander, life totals get drained so fast
Extort.
and are so yeah. They're fragile. So extort, life loss, life drain.
I think that's
vampirism, whatever you
essentially
wanna call
like
it.
the better version. There's a deck that I built was that Denethor from Lord of the Rings. Similar idea, but I think Elias is just better.
But that's the thing. That was my logical leap to Abdel Black because if okay,
Similar
let me retouch base here, right? The reason why I used Ellis at the time, she was brand new, she was untested, and Dallas, Sarson, and a few other people were telling me, well, listen, Heartless, the meta is this, the meta is that. Weavers are real good. Tatiova is the boogeyman of the format. Simic is real good. Combo, yada yada, right? And what I did to answer your earlier question, because we didn't get a chance to say it, but to answer your earlier question, if I was a brand new player who was just dipping their toes into the format, didn't know anything from anything, and they wanted to make their own thing, how would I go about it? How would the players in Philadelphia at Redcap's Corner, how would we go about it? It's very simple. You have to first know your enemy. Let's say the enemy is the meta, to understand how to dismantle it. That's what I did. I spent a night, I had me some whiskey, looking at the topping lists, what they were doing, how they won, and more importantly, because we're going to go into this word again about attrition and deprival, what those decks needed to win. If this deck did not have this card, or if they did not have access to this card, could they win? If the answer was no, then I had my out. So I did that for all of the topping decks at the time. And then I said, what colors that I would like to play best facilitate that? Was it red-white? Was it white-black? Was it red-black? And at the time, one of my other teammates, Dylan, he used Garna. Shout out to Dylan. I said to him, yeah, red-black is really good. Sacrifice loop's good. You have late game, you have the attrition, you have the burn, but something in my brain is telling me white's the way to go because white has access to some of the best protection in the format.
As a LOL, I really like white.
You got me back on that.
But it's not even funny. Like back in the day, I played angels and shit. Like I was a Sarah Angel guy. Like I was gonna crush you with that thing. So yeah, I
played demons and vampires.
I like that stuff. I like that shit too, though. And honestly, like the most powerful deck I had at the high school table was Izzet, Dragons, and Drakes, and like that thing was just you got the Shivan Dragon at the end. You just crack people.
Yeah. So I spent a night doing that. I built Ellis, and I said, okay, 30 life. How can I drain life totals without being the biggest target at the table? So I concocted the list. I put in all the drain package, all the extort, right? But see, the thing was, I would pace myself and not try to just go off on turn 6 or go off on turn 5 and just one cut at a time, slow cut, right? And eventually what would happen would be the same thing that you described with your Arabella deck. It would be, the table would be at 10. They're all deliberating on what to do. I'm at 60 life and they're going, wait a minute, how the hell is this deck at 60 life? What happened? Well, we got to kill him now, don't we? Well, yeah, we got to kill him, but we don't have any cards in our hands. So what are we going to do? I'm just sitting there I can do this all day.
I got a whole night, bro. I'm chilling. Yeah, I mean, as long as we don't have that 90-minute timer, we'll do this. We'll do this until the cows come home. Okay. I do have a relevant question here. It's not the one that I forgot, but it is relevant. Why this over Viscopa? Because Viscopa does have that bam, 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 blow out the whole fucking table first.
Exactly why.
Because you're the threat. Okay. It's lower. And that's why I could see the same thing with Denethor. Denethor was kind of that too, but it was a weird pay 1, sack a creature, drain the table for 1, you gain 1. But you could still pack all the extort, you could do all things. So I think it could be technically the same sort of deck. But when I tested it in a competitive setting, it didn't feel right or good enough. But again, maybe piloting, maybe just the way I had it built at the time.
There are several factors that determine the win of a game, but again, one of the factors, again, that I know we share, that I think is underrepresented and also not quite as explored. People need to understand, and I will say, I'll be the first. Let this be a historical moment in Pauper's history, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes the fact that your commander is, watch the hands, you ready? Bad. Sometimes your commander being bad is exactly what you need to make it, because that means you're not getting aggressed. It means you're not getting focused. It means you're not getting looked at, interacted with, or dealt with. That's why I chose Ellis the first time. I could have chosen any other color combination, white, black, that could have got there. It could have been the same result. But I needed, as a new player at the time, I needed people to write me off. I needed them to go, okay, Tatiova, Malcolm Pettis, some stupid Phyrexian bald lady, and whatever. What is that? Is that Finn, the Fang Bearer? Okay, cool. So I have all the threats now. The fourth guy, he's not a threat. He's playing some Phyrexian fanboy bullshit, so it's not going to do anything. But this Malcolm Pettis and this goddamn Fang the Finn Bearer, yeah, we gotta Finn the Fang Bearer. We gotta do something about this.
It's funny that you brought up Finn, because I actually tried to build Finn and I was like, eh. And then Necrogen Rot Priest came out and I was like, ooh. And pretty good, but I could never get the win. I'd always just kill a couple people and then lose. So I was just like, eh. You and I, we've kind of agreed that we share this mentality of like, we're gonna find this thing that people say is trash, and we're gonna make sure that like it's put through the ringer. Like, not necessarily that we're gonna make sure that it's good or we're gonna prove that it's good, because you can't. Some decks are just actually not good. It has nothing to do with your skill as a pilot or the thought process behind it or anything. Like, you can have good or you can have good ideas that just don't materialize, and that's fine. But that's part of the experimentation. And yes, there is, if you were to go through every single commander that's available in this format, which is a lot, and would be a back-breaking process for multitudes of people, even if they were collaboratively doing it. But let's just say, hypothetically, thought experiment, we did that. You're probably going to have like 40% like that are just unplayable trash. And then you're going to have, and those are mostly uncommon creatures, because the legendaries tend to be a little bit higher quality, but even then there are some that are arguably bad. And then you have, that 60% that it's like 30% of it is like that top end, and then the other 30% is just unexplored. And by that metric, which is obviously not scientific at all, I'm just bullshitting here, but by that metric, there's a large chunk. It's like the amount of the ocean we haven't explored, or the amount of the universe we don't know about.
Correct. That's why
it's out there, and somebody has to fucking do it.
That's why I believe when people go, we've explored this much of the galaxy, and then they go, yep, this rock right here, this is the best rock, that's the best star, this is the best planet. We do not know that. We cannot know that. And that's how I feel about the format.
Most of it, I'm almost 100% sure that anybody that's alive today is not going to know the answer to that.
They're not. That's not even a maybe or I think. That is a scientific fact.
Unless somebody that we don't know about is like doing some crazy wild shit in some fucking underground laboratory in Serbia, and like now all of a sudden a fucking wormhole's gonna open, and we're gonna get some weird newfangled and outside of something freakish like that is a product of the human imagination, although hypothetically possible. Anyhow, we're on the tip of the iceberg. This format has kind of it's been around less time than EDH proper. It's been around less time than CDH, but probably born in, I want to say, a similar time. I don't know the exact time frame as far as those things, but I know that I want to say it's probably at least like going around 10 years-ish, maybe a little bit longer. I know Commander was only recognized by WotC a little bit before that too, so it's been around for a while, but it is, from my understanding of like the history of the meta from the people that were there that have relayed these messages to me, people on the RC and yada yada who played a long time ago or before I played, because I've only been playing the format a couple years, despite playing Magic for most of my life. This is a different format, and it is something you have to adjust to, and it is its own thing. So I've got that 2 years experience here. it is kind of a weird learning process if you are jumping over from CDH or from any other format. There is this like kind of a hurdle, because I did play like not as religiously as I would have liked, but I played, games for like a year. And it wasn't a lot of games per month, maybe a handful. Mostly it was for my channel, because I was starting to do a once a month, like Pauper, 1 week out of the month was like Pauper video. And we would usually get in a few games in during the stream, so like those were kind of my games for the month. And it took me over a year to get my first win. And I brewed a lot of decks in that year. Every time a new set came out, I was like, ooh, this commander has potential. Build it,
Me
sucked.
too.
This one, build it, sucked. This one, build it, sucked. Then it was like, Gator finally told me, he was like, hey man, like, you play CDH, Malcolm Kedis. And I was like, well, no Glinthorn. He's like, yeah, but you can still do the fucking pirate thing. And I was like, oh, okay. Proceeded to beat him repeatedly with it. Turn 4, win. Turn 4, like, first game I ever played with the CDPDH, and this wasn't copying somebody's list. I took cards and slammed them together and said, okay, this is my version of it, without looking at anything, without any cheat sheets. Bam. Beat one of our more prolific players in the format. Turn 1. Or turn 4, I'm sorry. Second game, turn 5. They stopped me turn 4. I proceeded to repeat turn 5. I'm 1. The next game I lost, but I presented to win, and they stopped it, and then somebody else, I think Puzzle was playing Gretchen, so he won. But yeah, I mean, they made the analogy to me, like the parallel, which I know a lot of people who played like 60 card Pauper, especially competitively, they've made some transitions and parallels with some decks that were good in that format, how you could kind of translate it over to Pauper EDH or competitive Pauper EDH. Yeah. So right, so like they figured out some ways to do that sort of thing, and yeah, it's it like you can have some sort of experience with the game. Any experience with the game is going to translate in some way, shape, or form, but it's not like a direct one-to-one. Getting a tangible thing like that Malcolm Kedis comparison that I got helped me a lot. It kind of broke through the barrier of like, this is as good as it gets, so this is the power level I'm looking for, because you don't get that access to, like, I have all of this redundancy with tutors, and I have all of this fast mana. You just don't get that in this format, so you have to adjust to, like, this is what's powerful here. But then Puzzle also fucking took CPDH Gretchen to a budget CDH tournament and fucking won it, so,
Yeah.
It's like, the power level is such a subjective and weird thing, to be honest, but when it comes to building these sorts of things, it's like, man, like how do we translate, like, how do you get people to sign on to your, because you said you teach people, you're doing some coaching and whatnot, like, it's how to, like, teach people how to play the format, but, like, also to be better players, better deck builders, etc. How do you, for lack of a better word, open their mind to your philosophy of building, which I feel is basically my philosophy of building as well, but maybe with some different nuances. But regardless, like, just being able to say, like, I'm not going to play the thing that everybody is playing. Like, I hate that. And do you play video games at all? Like, competitively? Like League of Legends or, like, comp shooters or anything like Smash?
I used to play fighting games competitively.
That
stopped a long time ago. I used to play first-person shooters competitively. That stopped a long time ago as well. I just didn't have the time, always working. My line of work at the time, which was security, didn't really afford me the time to, always be home playing.
Yeah.
But my experience in competitive events and also in competitive, communities did transfer over. There was a positive bleeding effect. And I feel like a lot of people...
That's what I was getting at, essentially, is that, like, the thought process that goes into... So I'm an old school League player. Like, I played League of Legends when it came out, like, 2011-ish era. So, like, it had only been out for a short time. And it was back when you had to actually, like, buy your runes and then set your rune page. And there was this crazy min-maxing you could do to where you're like, I'm playing this particular character that has this particular buff on this thing and needs just a little bit more attack speed to get that extra on-hit damage, so we're going to put all these runes into attack speed, and it like, crazy dumb shit, right? So It's the same thing with anything. If you ever played an MMO, min-maxing your gear, getting your gear score, so to speak, up. I played before gear score was a thing, like EverQuest stuff, but like, still, if you've played anything competitively, you have already had this conversation with yourself when you said, is this green piece of gear better than this green piece of gear? And you looked at them and you said, okay, well, this is the pros, this is the cons, and then you made a cut. That's the same thing as doing a cut in your deck, right? So, optimization, and that is what we're doing here.
Talk about that for a second. Some people can't do that simply because they think cutting something is a loss that I'll never recover from. But
I agree with that. I have felt that personally. Like, this cuts me deep, son.
I have too. Like, I don't want to cut this. This card is so cool. If I draw this card under the right condition in Magical Christmas Land, it's going to be so cool.
Exactly.
Everyone feels that way.
But when it's Magical Christmas Land, you have to cut your losses because law of probability and all that good shit. Like, variably, like, statistically, like, how many times is that going to happen to you? And if it's low, you gotta cut it, and you gotta leave your feelings out, and you gotta be heartless.
Min-maxing is an art, my friend, and some people, they don't look at min-maxing the way that it should be perceived. Min-maxing literally means that. You have to eliminate any inferiority. You have to actually be like, okay,
minimum risk, maximum reward, right?
Optimal choice, I can't use it.
Right.
If it's not good, I can't use it. But see, let's talk about that again. There's just layers within layers within layers.
Because what's good and bad is subjective. So you have one person who, to just use a CDH thing because it's easier for me and my old man brain, Swords to Plowshares versus like the newest printed thing that's comparable, which is that Unwanted remake. Both 1 mana, both instant speed, both 1 white pip, particularly. Both eliminate a creature, but one puts it in exile, which is usually better, and gives them life, which, yeah, if it's an Adnos deck, you don't really want that, but otherwise, you don't really care. And the other one says, flip a card off the top of their deck. Now, if it's going to go down, face down, it's a 2/2, and it's just like every other morph creature known to man. You can flip it if it's a creature for its mana cost, but if it's not, you can't, so then you may actually hit something they need, like maybe they're Adnos. So that could be good in certain circumstances where you're like, I actually like that better than giving the guy life. So there are always considerations for every card, and the same thing parallels into Pauper, where like the difference between playing Lightning Bolt and Thunderclap is like, okay,
Correct.
Thunderclap is free if I have enough mountains that I'm willing to sacrifice, and Lightning Bolt costs me 1 mana. 90% of the time, Lightning Bolt is still the better card because leaving up 1 mana is better and you're not taking a detriment. But in that instance where you tapped out because you were greedy, maybe you fucked up, or somebody else just, put you in a position where you had to do something and now you don't have anything. If you have the Thunderclap in your hand, it's just like a deflecting swat. It's just like a misdirection. It's just like a Force of Will, a Fierce Guardianship, any other free spell you've ever heard of. Right. Snuff Out's another great example, which is funny because when I got into Pauper, I had already been playing Snuff Out in Yuriko, because it was just like, why wouldn't you? It's a free destroy thing, and it's also a 4-flip off of her, so it's great. And we all analyze cards like that. Well, that was still probably before Scryfall. Scryfall is amazing, by the way. If you don't use Scryfall, you should check it out.
Scryfall. Very,
very great tool when you're building decks, because when you're looking for that thing, you're like, I want more of this effect. You can kind of... I'm not really great with the syntax, but you can kind of flub your way through it and figure it out, and find more cards that are similar to what you're looking for to get that extra punch.
Until you find what you need. Absolutely.
Yeah. But,
yeah, man. But that's the process. It's all just finding out what the meta is, dismantling the meta. I can't break it down into any simpler parts than that. And a lot of people, they look at me and they go, "Well, I don't understand how to do that." That's part of doing the work.
Yeah.
If your meta is combo, what dismantles combo? If your meta is aggro, what stops aggro?
Well, and it's not even your meta, it's the meta overall. Because if we do subscribe to the fact that most people are monkey see, monkey do, and they are on that 8 to 10 decks that are the top end, and that's it, and nobody's trying anything else, it's going to stagnate into that. It's just like playing Smash or playing Street Fighter. It's like, these 8 characters are the best, and that's all anybody plays. But there's 30 characters in the game. Or League of Legends even. The meta shifts all the time. They tweak this, they tweak that, everything shifts around and things are going to change. So you can't expect to take the same deck to a tournament every single time and expect to win every single one because the meta is going to shift. If you haven't changed your deck, you're going to be behind. If you have changed your deck with considerations to the new meta, you might still be fine, but you might also still get outclassed, and that means you need to get a new deck that can compete in the new meta. And that, obviously, that's why we have to brew. And that's why everybody needs to be brewing, and also submit your game results. There's a couple places. I'll find the link and try to put it in the show notes below. Remind myself here, editor. But yeah, if you submit your deck, your games with your decks and other decks that people are playing, that helps Clay and some other people that are working on the data side of things to continue to like publish stuff quarterly and show like how the meta has shifted, because since I've been playing just the 2 years, it's gone from like, I don't know, it's kind of like a lot of like almost a lot of aggro decks. Like I was seeing a lot of like Gut Leader and like Amber, and like it was the Baldur's Gate background meta. So it was just like everybody was like trying these different weird things. So it was kind of this weird Wild West when I first started. And then it kind of slowed down, and then it got kind of to this thing where it was like Abdel and Malcolm Kedis and, the kind of the meta that we see now-ish, where it was combo-y. And then like last fall, last summer, winter, I don't know, we had kind of a shift into mid-range. Like everybody was playing mid-range for a little bit there. And then it's kind of shifted back to where there's like more combo, but then there's also still mid-range. There's still control, but like aggro is just severely understated, and that's where I've been kind of trying to push for that whole rock, paper, scissors, shotgun thing, is that like aggro needs to be the shotgun that comes back and punches people in the face. And it needs to happen quick. And that's why I'm going to push that list. I only am not playing that in this tournament tomorrow because I committed to playing Sivrus again. And as much as I love my Sivrus deck, I actually am currently infatuated with Arabella.
There is a cognitive divide when it comes to Abdel, because I have said this before in several other interviews and a couple other Discord chats, but I have won with Abdel more times than just by general grinding them out than I have by combo. Yeah. Sometimes just burning them is enough, and black and white can do that easily.
And don't forget red, because all the pingers. Like the pinger sub package has been a thing in quite a few decks recently. Not even recent. It's been like probably most of this year has been pinger meta, because there's just so many of them. And like I've got it. My Malcolm Kedis is a lot of pingers, and I am definitely pushing it a lot in Arabella. But it also kind of has its place in that Zoyola list that I am also interested in trying to push. So like
direct damage.
The stuff is out there. It's just a matter of like, for lack of a better term, having the fucking balls to just do it. Try it. Put your money where your mouth is. Be like, hey, this thing looks good. This looks good. We're gonna do it. And don't be afraid to be like, hey, because I've already done this personally. Like, I literally went out on the record of saying Sivrus Cloakwood was the best mid-range deck in the format, and then played it in a tournament and lost, and then played it in a tournament and lost, and then said, okay, it's good. I can't say it's the best, because it's not. It hasn't proven it. But if it wins a tournament, or like, again, it has won tournaments. I just, again, don't have the receipts. But if I can watch and see one of my boys, or if I can pull it off, then I'll be like, all right, yeah, we'll go back and say this is the best shit. Because I don't have a problem with saying shit like that, because that inspires other people to play it, because they're like, this is the best. All right, so I'm gonna play it. And like maybe the problem is that there are I think outside of those, some of the stock decks kind of build themselves, and they are kind of beginner friendly in the sense of like, as soon as you learn how to dig and or find the combo and execute it as fast as possible, which it does take some reps, but like it's not that hard to grasp. So once you've got that concept down of like, I need to get this Land of Tapper, I need to get this land enchantment, and then I need to get Gretchen on the field, and then I just go ham, right? So like they just have to know what they need to get, and then once they know the game plan and they can do that and demonstrate that over and over, the decks have already been not solved, but like honed in to a point where the only time they're going to get any new changes is if something superior is printed in a slot that they can replace. So they're already where they should be. So at that point, it ends up being where that person can pick it up and just be like, okay, it's consistent. I'm going to keep doing it, and eventually I'm going to get there. And it makes them feel good because it's a consistent, easy way to make you feel like you have a grasp on the format. Outside of
He's ready out of the box,
right? Outside of knowing like the rest of the meta and knowing what you need to watch out for, that you cannot teach someone. That has to happen organically. So you can prepare someone as much as you want, but like, yeah. And also I can tell you all of the shit that I just told you. You just heard it in your ears or, in your headphones, or through your speakers. And that's processing in your brain right now, but like, that doesn't mean that you're going to retain that information, because then you're going to turn on your phone and look at TikTok and forget about what I just said.
And everything's gone.
Right. So, the point is that through experience, you do learn those things, and then you pick them up, and then you figure it out, blah, blah. And then you learn how to make good decisions. But play patterns and skill, as far as being able to know, like, threat assessment, politicking a little bit. I hate politics, but, like, it is a thing you kind of have to engage with a little bit. Those types of things, like, are kind of learned over the course of time. But as far as, like, when it comes to deck building and things, like, I think we can definitely kind of hone it into where, like, these are one-to-one good choices, and then whatever. But then once you've gotten to the point where you've, like, those people have played those types of decks, and they're like, so, like, I don't know if I told you, I told somebody recently that, like, that Malcolm Kedis thing where I had the explosion, I was like, oh, this is great, and I played it in a tournament, I lost. I played it recently, in the last tournament I played it again, because I was like, well, fuck it, I'm going to be like the cool kids, I'm just going to net deck this, mail it in, try to win a tournament. I fucking scrubbed out again, and I was like, well, this isn't even my fucking playstyle anymore. I don't even like this. I don't want to play this. I want to play something different. And I want to try and challenge the meta and do other things. So, the Sivris thing, the Arabelle thing, those are better for me. So, but I think that we do need to kind of push, we have to push some of those kinds of things too, to kind of balance the meta out. Because otherwise we're going to end up with just everything's combo and nothing else is viable.
Everything gets homogenized. It's all yogurt. It's all the same. But we don't need that. Again, there are a lot of variables. A lot of people go by experience. A lot of people go by, knowing this, like you said, knowing the routine. But again, my favorite word when it comes to anything competitive is disruption. I always say being able to disrupt the status quo, being able to disrupt what people expect or are hoping to see, that is how you win games. Because like you said, again, with the guy in the example who goes, I do the Gretchen loop, I get the untappers, I get the big mana, I put the stuff on the board. Cool. But what happens when you lose that land?
What happens when somebody says, fuck your combo?
Right. What do you do then? See, that's the cut right there. Because we're talking about this in layers, right? It's people who know how to do the combo, people who know about tournament scenes and competitive play, and then the people who know the one layer above that. Because most people can't handle pressure. You can tell who's played competitively games. If you played a game competitively, you can tell who has actually competed. It's something about the fabric of who they are that is quantified.
Oh, I'm sure I displayed that a couple times throughout my limited tournament experience. Like, I'm sure somebody picked up on that. They're like, I smell bitch in the air.
It's something that a lot of people don't have, and that's okay because, like you said, it's learned over time.
You got to crack your teeth somewhere, right? Like I'm doing it with Pauper too. My whole thing was like at some point I wanted to do CEDH tournaments. I was like really like on that way. Like I did. I don't know if you ever heard of the MLC. I was in the second one. I didn't do great. I did all right, but I won a couple games. But yeah, I didn't place or anything. But regardless, that was like kind of like the first tournament-ishy thing that I did, and it was so like stretched out. It was kind of like a league. It was stretched out over so long, and then towards the end, I ended up having to drop out because of just like people had dropped and this and it was messy to say the least, and that's probably why they haven't done it again because it was just not organized as well as it could. Yeah, it could have been better. It could have been worse, but it was. It is what it is. But that was kind of like where I cracked my teeth a little bit. But then I had fully intended on eventually starting to play, and then I just kept hearing all these stories about the cheating. Because I was not intending on going places, because there wasn't anything really local to me, so it was more of just do the online tournament scene. Because you could still win cards and win money and whatever, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, play some cards. You throw $100 in the pot, maybe you come out with more than that, and if not, you had a good time, right? It's no different than paying for a ticket to MagicCon. But then, yeah, like I said, lots of shit with cheaters and stuff, and I was like, I don't want to throw my money away for nothing. And then the Pauper thing got pointed at me, and I had already been kind of dipping my toes in the format, and it was like Sanctuary popped up, and here we are. I would be participating in more, like I would do Common Cause as well, but it was just not hosted at a time that worked for my schedule. So, but I would also do some of the I've heard the Philly scene. Also, one of the guys that's on my stream team lives in Philly, so I've heard the Philly scene is pretty cool. I would love to go there and check it out. I would also love to eat a cheesesteak in Philly. So someday, maybe. Bucket list, I also need to make a trip to Wisconsin at some point because I'm a Green Bay fan. So Lambeau is in my future someday. But, here we are.
Hey, look, Clay's coming here for one of our events, so you're more than welcome to join. Okay?
Yeah.
Already starts at 8.
All right. We'll see if we can make that happen at some point. If not, Vegas seems to be a pretty good central meeting point for a lot of people. So maybe that could be a place. I'm hopefully that's the thing. I'm supposed to be meeting like a lot of these guys for the first time in Vegas in a couple weeks. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But Heartless, I appreciate your candidness, your willingness to just sit here and let me bullshit with me.
Nah, bullshit if it makes sense, my man.
Hey, I'm sorry this is less of a hype for you, but at the same time, I think we hit on a lot of notes that people. I'm hoping this is food for thought for a lot of people. Let's just say that. So I do appreciate you coming on and hanging out, and it was a great discussion. I'd like to do some more content in the future, so I'll be in touch. I think we hit on some good notes, so there might be some more things we can discuss.
Used to say, you have my number.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, man. So thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you the next time there's another tournament win that I have an inkling of, probably because Clay told me. But yeah,
like
actually it'll probably be the Sanctuary because that's happening right now. Basically. So, either way,
send me the details as well.
We'll let you know. Everybody have a good night. We'll see y'all later.